All praises, all praises, all praises to the heavenly, holy, almighty creator of infinity, eternity, the universe, and all there is. Hello, family. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit, and we are back together once again as we converge together in this wonderful consensual assembly of peace and love and joy and harmony and safety as we review some more material from throughout the current events of the nation for the edification and education of the holy hidden nation. All praises and my continuing petitions of prayer and care for the safety of the 12 tribes of the house of Israel, as well as the pending Israelites, my brothers and sisters of the world. So family, as we converge in this wonderful convocation, we will be reviewing the material of the slave ship, the Clotilda, and how it is becoming a nice exhibit of evidence for the case of reparations. And so, as we continue to build the tie as the American descendants of the enslaved for the just due, for the retribution of the robbery, for the rape, for the murder, for the torture, for the torment, for the disenfranchisement of us as the children of the covenant here on these American shores, we shall continue to prod and poke and agitate at our political leaders so that they may get on the board of righteous repair of those referred to as foundational Black Americans. And so, as we began to embark upon this expansion, we bring forth the standards of the Revelations.Unveiled Detroit channel, which is the book of Malachi, chapter 3, verses 6, as well as Hebrews, chapter 13, verse 8. And so, family, as we come together, as we are clenching in love our fellow beings, as we become still, as we become quiet, we shall begin with a review of the Clotilda, a slave ship, a hard case for reparations. Mobile, Alabama. Alabama steamship owner Timothy Mayher financed the last slave vessel that brought African captives to the United States, and he came out of the Civil War a wealthy man. His descendants with land worth millions are still part of the Mobile Society's upper crust. The people whom Mayher enslaved, however, emerged from the war with freedom, but little else. Census forms that documented Mayher's post-war riches list them as laborers, housewives, and farmers with nothing of value. Many of their descendants today hold working class jobs. All right, family, so we have a direct line of living descendants of those that were enslaved and came out of the ownership of the Mayher family of Alabama. Now, the history of the Mayher family and the slave ship Clotilda may offer one of the more clear-cut cases for slavery reparations with identifiable perpetrators and victims. While no formal push for reparations has begun, the subject has been bubbling up quietly among community members since earlier this year, when experts said they found the wreckage of the Clotilda in muddy waters near Mobile. Some say too many years have passed for reparations. Others say the discovery of the ship makes the timing perfect. And so, family, we must remember a line has been drawn amongst the nation. We hold the line of truth of history, of righteousness, as those who have been victimized within this institutional framework of a corporation so named United States of America. And those, our opposition, those who have benefited from our disenfranchisement, who have benefited from us being the lowliest of the society, both politically, economically, socially, and educationally. They will fight tooth and nail because the very essence of their wealth and fortune depends on us not receiving economic recompense. Many Clotilda descendants say reconciliation with the Mehers would suffice. Perhaps a chance to discuss an intertwined history. Others hope the family helps with ambitious plans to transform a downtrodden community into a tourist attraction. Some want cash, some want nothing. And so, family, this is where we have to interject. Those in the Mobile, Alabama, and the Alabama community, those who are on the tide, the tidal wave of the ADOS movement, to continue to bring this into public light. We will represent the voice of those who want to cut the check, give us the monies, the financial inheritance, the material wealth that was gained from the profit of those enslaved. So, for all of those amongst the community who want to have the conversation, that is beautiful. For those who don't want anything, that is all right. But for those who want the financial shackles of having nothing released, we must continue this reparations revolution. Reparations debates usually involve redress for the multitude of descendants for about 4 million black people who were enslaved in the United States. But with Congress considering whether to create a reparations study commission, what might a single instance of reparations look like in the city where this nation's Atlantic slave trade finally ended? Pat Frazier, a descendant of the Meher slave James Dennison, isn't sure. But she's unhappy about the lack of justice and what many consider the deafening silence of the Meher family. I've never known them to just own up to what happened, said Frazier, age 68. And so, family, why would the oppressor, the slave owner, the slave master, the profiteer off the blood, sweat, and pain of the people, why would they speak up? The wickedness within the bloodline and lineage of these people will send them to the shadows, will send them to the depths of silence as they silently continue to profit from generation to generation from that which was evil. In Mobile, like many southern communities, descendants of slave owners and enslaved people are often neighbors, though in vastly different circumstances. Originally from Maine, Meher moved south and got rich off steamboats and a sawmill. He purchased the schooner Clotilda for a reported $35,000 and financed a slave expedition to West Africa the year before the war began. The international slave trade was already outlawed, but Meher wagered he could import slaves in defiance of the ban. Arrested after The ship carrying about 110 captives arrived and was scuttled in Mobile in 1860. He was cleared of charges by a judge, according to Dreams of Africa in Alabama, a book by Sylviane A. Diouf. Historical accounts say Meher refused to provide land after the war to the freed Africans, who then scraped together money to purchase property. They founded a community called African Town, or Africa Town, USA, where some of the West African ways of the once enslaved people were preserved. Its remnants still exist. Meher listed assets including $20,000 in land and personal property in the 1870 census. A newspaper article says his son Augustine was a multi-millionaire in 1905. Court records from 2012 say the Meher family real estate company held $35 million in assets, including 22,000 acres of land, timber plus rental income, and cash. Tax records show Meher relatives remain large landowners with $20 million in property through the corporation. One of Timothy Meher's distant granddaughters was feted as the White Queen of the city's racially segregated Mardi Gras in 2007. The Black Queen that year was a descendant of one of the Clotilda Africans. And so, family, wow, we have this dual existence right here, basically everywhere in America, where the descendants of the enslaved live amongst and still work for and are still in invisible and shameful servitude to the slave masters. And there is still segregation and open discrimination. There is still hostility, and there is still the profiteering of the descendants of these slave holders. 22,000 acres of land that those captives' descendants never had the benefit of or the profit to. That is just horrific. Historical horror has been the existence of the American descendant of the enslaved for almost half a millennium here on this continent of confusion. The Mobile area features Meher State Park and Meher Avenue near Africa Town, and the Meher family has signs throughout the area offering land for lease. A red concrete marker bearing the family name stands in the Tensaw Delta near the spot where the Clotilda's remains were found last year. There's no consensus on what reparations might include for Clotilda descendants. Jocelyn Davis, who helped organize the Clotilda Descendants Association, said, "Conversation would be a great start. If we could just sit down at the table and just talk about that would be a powerful thing," she said. Bill Green, a descendant of Clotilda captive Osa Kiba, said people are due more than talk. He called reparations an excellent idea. If not personal payments to Clotilda descendants, they could include contributions to some group to help descendants, perhaps to revitalize Africa Town parks, a memorial, a Clotilda replica, housing and businesses. And family, you know what? You got post-traumatic slave syndrome and Stockholm syndrome just is these mental concrete barriers that will not have our people say, "Give us our money. We will go where we are safe, where we can have some peace, and we will build for ourselves. Cut the check. Give us our money. I think it would be equitable for them to make some payments to the descendants of the Clotilda cargo. What is right? Cargo family. We were cargo, just like the barrels of wine and the bales of hay and flour. We were just one of the commodities being shipped back and forth throughout the old and new world. I think we're in a prime position to have our court system decide something, said Green of Texas. Dioff, author, who closely studied the Clotilda and Africa town, said the Mihar clan inherited generational wealth while Timothy Mihar's captors scraped by. There was nothing and there's still nothing, she said. The National African American Reparations Commission, formed in 2015, is seeking an apology for slavery, plus money for business development, health, education, historic preservation, housing, criminal justice reform, and more. Another organization who is not fighting for the direct cutting of checks. The Mihars aren't saying what, if anything, they want to do, and have made no public comment about the Clotilda discovery. The Mihars aren't going to surface, particularly now that the Clotilda has been found, said Eric Finley, who operates an African American Heritage Tour in Mobile. An attorney representing the family of Augustine Mihar III, a distant grandson of Timothy Mihar, had declined to comment to the Associated Press. Other family members or their lawyers didn't return messages. There are indications the Mihar family may have known the location of the Clotilda before researchers found it. An investigative report released by the Alabama Historical Commission quoted historian John Sledge as saying one of the Mihars told him family members twice dynamited the wreck in the 50s to retrieve valuable copper off the hull. In an interview, Sledge declined to say where he heard the story. But I really wonder how much more anyone knew, he said. That's the big question to Ted Kebe, another descendant of Clotilda captive Osa Kebe. Who knew what? He wants to know more about the Mihars and the lives of the people Timothy Mihar enslaved. I have no feelings about what happened. It's a part of history, but I would love to meet them. They are a part of history, he said. All right, family. So that was a recent article published by the Associated Press about the finding of the Clotilda, more in-depth information about the Mihar family, and the vast amount of wealth that we've seen that was passed from the primary party in the late 1800s all the way up till today. Over 100 years of the generation of wealth moving through this family until this day, thus creating that invisible, well, I guess we can't call it invisible, the obvious dual existence of ADOS and the slave holders, captors, masters, keepers, owners, and overseers. And so, family, as we submit our prayers for the peace and protections to our Holy Creator, we must pray for the repair, for the righteous retribution, for our cause as we continue to endure and persevere in the land of our captivity. And so, as we continue to bear forth, we stand tall, we stand strong, we walk in truth, we walk in righteousness. We are the light, we shall prevail. And family, until we are together again, I love you, I love you, I love you. This is Revelations.Unveiled. Detroit.